Hey everyone, Scott from Galaxy Comics with a little different video today. This probably isn't going to mean anything to like 99% of you. It's really targeted towards my older Saginaw area comic collecting guys. And maybe you heard by now, maybe not, but Tim Jones has died. And if you collected comic books in Saginaw like 40 years ago, you probably remember the Painted Pony comic shop down in Old Town. And that was Tim's store. He was down there like in the late 70s, early 80s. He moved around a couple of times. He bought out Libby's comic store when they were down in like that basement of that one building. And then he moved again. And that was where I first found him. I first found the Painted Pony when I was like 12 or 13. And I had just started collecting comics. I was collecting like Star Wars and Uncanny X-Men and New Mutants and stuff like that. It was about the time New Mutants came out. And I went in there as a kid, and it was just comics. You know, back in the day, comic stores were basically just comic books. You know, there wasn't all the toys and games and all the extra stuff that they have now. You know, it was comics, maybe some posters, maybe a couple T-shirts, whatever. But it was new books, back issues. And when I went in there, it was kind of small and dark and cluttered, and you go into the front, you go into the back room over there, and there's just stacks of books unorganized, and it was just messy and dark and awesome. Just amazing. There's an old school comic store, and he had a bunch of Uncanny X-Men pinned up on the wall. Those were the hot books at the time, and I went in there with some paper route money and just started picking books off. I want that one, and I need those two, and that one, and it was all Uncanny X-Men in the 120s, maybe 130s. They were probably $2 or $3 a piece. And that was the first comic store I had ever seen. Who even knew such a thing existed. And he was there for a little while until Koi's opened up, and then once Dave opened his store, Tim kind of closed up pretty quickly after that. And then I didn't see him for years and years until about maybe 15 years ago. He just randomly came into my store and opened started a pull list at here. And it was probably after Schrage closed. I imagine he was probably going to Schrage's from the 80s into the 90s there until Schrage closed up. And then he was a good guy. He collected his Vampirella and Red Sonja and Catwoman, and he definitely had a type. And he loved horses. Man, I don't think I ever saw him. Every shirt he wore when he came in had a horse on it. It was just I don't even know where he gets all these different horse shirts. And he had a collection of Breyer horses, and he named his comic store The Painted Pony. I mean, dude liked horses. And so he was a good guy. I got to talk to him quite a bit. He came in every week or so for 15 years, and most of the time he wouldn't say anything. He was really super quiet. And other times we'd sit there and talk for like 20 minutes, talk about his store, just talk about his collection and things like that. But a lot of times he wouldn't say anything. He was what we call in the industry, we call him an odd duck, and because he was a little weird, and everybody's a little weird, Well, everybody's got something odd, and but he was a good guy. He the thing about him is I'd never heard anybody say a bad word about him. He never. There's no stories about the guy at Painted Pony, ripping people off or anything like that, which is really unusual in this industry, comic stores, sports card stores, or whatever. It doesn't matter who you are. There's people out there that think you're an asshole. It's just the way it is. There's stories about everybody. Koi's Comic Experience, us, Stadium, whatever. There's people that think you're a dick. Justified or not. But nobody ever said anything about Tim. He was just quiet, nice guy. So a couple of years ago, we ended up buying out his collection. I think he was kind of, his health was failing a little bit. He was diabetic and was kind of in and out of the hospital, and I think he didn't want to burden his his mom with trying to figure out what to do with his stuff after he passed. So we ended up buying out his collection a couple of years ago, and when I was over there, dealing with that, I got to see some of his artwork. He was a decent artist. He had a lot of drawings and some paintings and stuff, just different different superheroes, different characters, a lot of horse stuff, a lot um, there was that, and he was a poet. Like just books of poetry, stuff that he'd written, and I had the opportunity to read some of that. It wasn't until after he passed, but I got to see some of that, and it was pretty good. I mean, better than I can do. He's definitely a better artist than me, and some of the poetry was, some of it was a little dark. He kind of, I think, had some demons that, there's a lot of it with see on the other side kind of stuff, or stuff about this life, that life. But that wasn't bad either. It was some decent poetry. Yeah, that's about all I can say about him. He was a good guy. I said, loved his horses, loved his comics, and I guess when it comes down to it, when my time comes, I think if the worst thing that somebody can say about you after you're gone is that you're a little bit weird, then that's probably a life well lived. So I'm just throwing that out there, just kind of letting people know. So that's all I really have to say about that.